friends, welcome to Viewpoint from Overseas. I am your host, Misbah Azam. Today I have a very distinguished guest joining me on telephone from Washington, D.C. He was a US Deputy Ambassador to Pakistan. He was also a US Ambassador to Kazakhstan and US Ambassador to Tajikistan. He also served as US Chargé d'Affaires in Turkmenistan. Prior to his diplomatic assignments in Central Asia, he was Director of the Office of Caucasus and Central Asian Affairs, the Bureau of Europe and Eurasian Affairs State Department. In that position, he wrote and negotiated 4 of the key bilateral agreements defining the Central Asian states' enhanced relationship aftermath of the tragedies of 9/11. His earlier assignment also included his work as a press spokesperson in the US Embassy in Moscow. During his course of diplomatic career, he received multiple presidential performance awards, State Department Meritorious and Superior Honors Award, as well as the Distinguished Honor Award. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce you to His Excellency Ambassador Richard E. Hoagland. How are you, sir, today?
Good day, Dr. Azam. I'm very well, and thank you for this opportunity. It's a real pleasure to talk to you and your guests.
The pleasure is all ours, sir. So let me start from the recent incident in Afghanistan. An ambulance packed with explosives blew up in a crowded area of Kabul on Saturday, killing at least 95 precious lives, destroying precious lives, and wounding 158 people over there. According to the media reports, the group which claims responsibility is not in the list which we put under as a terrorist groups in Afghanistan, in Taliban. And there are other reports says that we are trying to negotiate with all of them. Also, there are reports that almost 70 to 80% funds Talibans are utilizing to run their war machines, it comes from inside Afghanistan by the production of opium. In 2017, there was $1.4 billion opium was produced inside Afghanistan, which is like 63% rise from 2016, according to the reports. And this is all happening under our noses, under the noses of the Afghan army. Sir, to what extent we will go now to negotiate with those groups which may not want to negotiate with us, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, first of all, let me say once again, this was a horrible incident in Kabul, and it just follows a week after the attack on the Intercontinental Hotel, in which others lost their lives. We can say how terrible this is, we can shudder in horror at this, but think about the families involved. Think about the mothers and fathers and sons and husbands and wives of all the lives lost. It's just a horrible, horrible situation. You have given a great deal of detail here on the complexities of the situation. And I think we can't overemphasize how complex this is. Let me go to your question about negotiation. What I know from my own experience, having worked with Afghans and having served in Pakistan 3 times, all the way going back to the late 1980s. When we talk about groups like the Taliban, when we talk about groups even like the Haqqani network, a part of the Taliban, it's just like any government in a way, and by that I mean that yes, they have certain policies, and that's what everyone focuses on, but it doesn't mean that absolutely everyone in the group or in a government is totally aligned with that policy. And so that's, in a diplomatic sense, what opens up the opportunity and the possibility for negotiation. So there should be a double track, I would say. We should always be looking for those with authority who have influence, who might be willing to negotiate for the good of their people and for the good of their nation. At the same time, that we must continue to punish those who are taking lives and tearing apart a nation.
Sir, here I have this question, and when I look at the map of Afghanistan, recently George Freedman wrote an article with Farhan Bukhari, and he gave the map of Afghanistan. Even the northern provinces like Takhar, Kunduz, they were part of those districts, were all controlled fully by Taliban. So my question is that why Taliban, after controlling almost 40% of Afghanistan, why they want to negotiate with us? Why they want to negotiate with Afghan government? Can you comment on that kindly?
Well, I think the top leadership of the Taliban right now would be highly reluctant to negotiate. But the point I was trying to make was that it's not always monolithic. There are always people who can be peeled off, who have influence, who have different points of view that they talk about among themselves. And that's why it's important to try to find those. But again, let me emphasize, at this very sensitive and very difficult time, I think it needs to be a double track. Attempt to find those who can negotiate in good faith, that can be trusted, at the same time that we have to fight those who are destroying their own nation and causing harm to countless hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, not just Afghans, but international citizens too.
So basically, my next question would be to you regarding this Afghan issue, and please help me understanding that thing a little more detail, more into depth there. When I see that, I see it, we have only 12,000 troops there, which are mostly confined in a smallest area. Afghanistan is not just Kabul or Kandahar. I mean, it's a big area. Why not we have a huge surge there? We put a lot of our soldiers there and kind of somehow try to make the peace over there. Is it possibility, or I am thinking too much?
Well, let me first emphasize that I am speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the US government. And I'm also speaking from 30 years of experience and knowledge of the entire region. We have tried a surge before. We had as many as 100,000 US troops in Afghanistan. And for one reason or another, that didn't work. And if we look at a longer historic perspective, we can go back to the British. The British were chased out of Afghanistan. And then starting in the 1970s, Russia played a bigger role, and then Russia invaded and occupied Afghanistan. And eventually by 1989, they were forced to leave too. I'm not saying that the United States is going to be forced to leave, but the important thing to remember is that from everything that I know, from my own experience, from having many Afghan friends, Afghanistan is radically independent. It will never allow another nation to take full control or even partial control of its own nation. And for that reason, I would say that the only long-term solution possible will be some kind of negotiation that can help Afghanistan itself return to a peaceful settlement, so that people can live their lives as they did many years ago.
What I hear from you, you still believe in having some negotiated settlement there. But George Freedman, in his article last year, which I mentioned, he also came up with one more possibility. And he say, and I'm quoting him, it would not be surprising if the US under the Trump administration decided to cut its losses and pull out as it did in Vietnam. Are you looking, I mean, your diplomatic experience can easily see this thing, where this thing is coming from. Can you tell me about, can you explain me this?
Well, look, you know that there has been, the United States government has put out a new national security policy. It has also put out a new military policy. And neither one of those points to the possibility of, as you said, cutting and running. That would really radically destabilize the whole region. The problem is, however, how long can we stay and what will we do while we're there? That's why I and many other of my colleagues in the diplomatic service, as well as other outside observers, think that ultimately there will have to be some kind of negotiated settlement. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the Trump administration is prepared to cut and run at this time.
Okay.
You've seen that over the last year. We've added several thousand new troops. We have a new commitment from our NATO allies to continue to assist Afghanistan. But it's still very, very complicated, mm-hmm. and no one is coming out on top yet.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about US-Pakistan relations. Just weeks ago, 1 week or 2 weeks ago, I was reading one of your statements while you were talking to the Pakistani PAC. And you mentioned that US-Pakistan relations are going to be a long-term relation, and whatever we see, the troubles nowadays is just ups and downs. Recently, our National Security Advisor, Dr. McMaster, he appeared on Voice of America, and while he was talking to Greta Van Susteren, he said that we have, we means US and Pakistan, we have really begun now to work together to stabilize Afghanistan, and in a way that would be a huge benefit to Pakistan. Sir, when I talk to some of the Pakistani media people, their opinion makers, and also I saw some of them talking on the news media, they somewhat disagree with General McMaster, and they say that US-Pakistan relation, I don't want to go into the history of that, you know it much better than I do, but but they say that it was mostly a transactional relationship. Whenever we need Pakistan, we become their allies, and when we think that things are over, we put the sanctions on them. How do you see this relationship going for the long term?
Well, first, let me pick up on a word that you used there, that it's a transactional relationship. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I hear diplomatic relations criticized between other countries, not just the United States and Pakistan, but other countries as being transactional. Look, the reality is that almost every diplomatic relationship in the world is transactional. And that is cutting deals with each other, reaching understandings with each other, somewhere in the broad middle, that neither one comes out on top, but the relationship continues, and it continues in a relatively advantageous and positive direction for both of the countries involved. Now, that having been said, look, the relationship between Pakistan and the United States, to some degree, I believe, is still stuck in the Cold War. Because everyone will remember that during the Cold War, India and the Soviet Union were allies, and Pakistan and the United States were allies. And so it was the United States against the Soviet Union in South Asia. Even if we go back decades, our relationship between Islamabad, first Karachi, and then Islamabad and Washington, has had its ups and downs. Among friends, among diplomatic colleagues, and sometimes at think tanks, I will point out that the U.S.-Pakistan relationship should be almost seen as a Groundhog Day relationship. That means that over the long period of time, nothing much really changes, and we experience the same things over and over and over again. I would be delighted if both Pakistan and India could get away from Cold War thinking and say, we will build new relations that are mutually respectful with many different countries of the world. But I do understand that the Pakistan-United States relationship has certainly had its ups and downs. You know, sometimes people will describe our relationship as a Catholic marriage. That means there are problems and problems and problems, but there can never be a divorce. And so I think that, you know, we're in one of those problem periods at the moment again. Look, when I was last serving in Pakistan in 2011, 2012, and into 2013, we had one of those very difficult periods. And you know what we did behind the scenes, behind closed doors? We sat down and we worked and we worked and we found ways to solve problems so we could get back to an even keel again. And I think that's what's going on right now. I have to emphasize that I'm not privy to the most sensitive discussions going on right now, but I do know from press reports that CENTCOM commander, United States Central Command commander, General Votel, has been in Pakistan this month. I know that the acting Assistant Secretary of State for South Central Asia, Ambassador Alice Wells, has been in Pakistan this month. I know that there are other visits and other meetings going on constantly. And I think what's going on right now behind the scenes is trying to unravel all these horrible knots that we've gotten ourselves into so we can get back to a relatively even keel again.
So, sir, how you see the future of that region? You know, India is turning to a big power there. It already is. India and US are getting the strategic allies. Then Pakistan, as you mentioned, that of course it's like a Catholic marriage, but they are finding, you know, it's a very good word actually you use for that. You know, I never thought about that. But how the things will go up, and especially in India, this growing fundamentalism over there where, you know, the human life is less important than the cows, and, you know, like threatening, their general is threatening to call Pakistan's quote unquote nuclear bluff. How you see that this is taking us, where it is taking us?
Well, look, you mentioned the current growing fundamentalism in India. That is a danger. But fundamentalism exists in Pakistan too. It exists in other countries. You know, in our own way in the United States, we have a kind of fundamentalist movement also. And I don't mean to say that that's religiously oriented, but when you have extreme views that require allegiance to a certain point of view and that it becomes a political battle, that's not the way that really, really strong countries move forward. So you also asked another intriguing question, and that's more about the region. And I would say the region should not be, for Pakistan, just looking to the east toward India, which has always been a difficult relationship from independence in 1947.
Of course.
I think, based on my own experience and also things that I'm writing right now, that it's important to pay attention to Central Asia, because independent for only 26 years, those nations now feel strong enough that they can begin to work together. In March, 6 weeks from now, the 5 presidents of Central Asia will meet together on their own without any outside leadership, like from the United States or Japan or from South Korea. They will meet on their own in Astana, Kazakhstan, to begin to consider the possibilities of some sort of more productive working together. I think if that develops, and then if that spreads across the Caspian Sea to countries like Azerbaijan, that's going to become another center of power, independent power, not controlled by another nation, but independent power. And I think looking ahead for the next 10, 20, 30 years even, we're going to see those centers of power develop around the world. And I would hope that Pakistan and Afghanistan would say, we understand that, and we see that we need to play a role in that also.
Very, very good, sir. So you see it nowadays. There is inside Pakistan, there is a very big debate kind of going on. That it's not like a debate. I would say that it's like a rumor there that U.S. is some way helping, kind of pushing India to go and sit with a negotiating table. And some days ago, it was being said that there are some kind of heat reduced on the line of control also. But of course, after that incident happened again. So how you see that? Is there U.S. actively involved in India-Pakistan relations?
I can tell you honestly, I don't believe that's the case.
Okay.
And the reason is, first and foremost, that India would not want that. If you go back to the period when we were right after 9/11, our very famous diplomat, Richard Holbrooke, took over the Pakistan and India account in the State Department for the government. And one of the things that he wanted to do initially was to play a negotiating role between India and Pakistan. And he dropped that very quickly, like a hot potato, because India said absolutely not. And so I think even to this day, even though I understand the sentiments, I understand how some people in Pakistan are thinking about this, the United States is not secretly pushing India into any kind of thing like that. That's why I think it's most important for countries to build strong, respectful, open, honest relationships with each other rather than against each other.
That's true. And I do agree with you, sir, because Pakistan and India, they did have the backdoor negotiations, which never worked. I mean,
that's right. Exactly true.
That's true. So, sir, in the end, I would like to ask you that what you think that Pakistan should be doing and US should be doing to have a peace inside Afghanistan and peace in the region.
Well, first of all, our relationship, United States relationship with Pakistan, as you say, as we acknowledge, has always been transactional. But there's been another side to it too, that we need to acknowledge, and that's our business and commercial relationship. It's also the people-to-people relationship. Look, Pakistan is doing quite well in the longer sense economically. There is a growing middle class in Pakistan. Now, everyone knows that the upper class of Pakistan was quite Anglophiliac. It was very British-oriented. The rising middle class is Pakistani. It's not associated with another country in any way. And so I think we need to pay much, much more attention to this rising middle class and also build our trade and commerce relations. And that'll help put a stronger footing for the more difficult issues that we have. Now, in the longer term, the same thing is going to happen in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. But Afghanistan has been a disrupted nation ever since 1979. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take a long time to get back to normal. Mm-hmm. But in the end, that's the only way that there can be peace in the region. If each country takes care of its own problems, if each bilateral relationship, whether it's with the United States or Russia or China or European nations, if they are all taken on a case-by-case basis and say we're going to build on the positive and move forward, I think that's where diplomacy should go.
Very good, sir. So thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for your time. We were really honored that you joined us. We would like to have an opportunity to keep in touch with you in the future, and if you would be kindly giving us some more time, because there are a lot of questions, a lot of things we can discuss with you.
It was my great pleasure, and I thank you for the honor of talking to you and your guests today. And of course, I look forward to staying in touch in the future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. So, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard Ambassador Richard E. Hoagland. So please keep watching Viewpoint from Overseas. I am your host, Misbah Azam. Thank you and good day.